Days after the terrorist Hafiz Saeed launched his political party by rebranding his outfit Jamaat-ud-Dawa, the Milli Muslim League has now a candidate against former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's wife, Kulsum Nawaz. The nomination papers of the Milli Muslim League candidate Sheikh Yaqub have been accepted by the Election Commission. The party has already hit the campaign trail. Now, Kulsum Nawaz is contesting from the constituency after the seat fell vacant following the disqualification of her husband, Nawaz Sharif. 2 weeks ago, the global terrorist and Mumbai attack mastermind Hafiz Saeed had launched a political outfit in Islamabad, inviting sharp criticism from the world community. I'm joined on the broadcast by WION's Islamabad Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui. Taha, it doesn't seem like any sort of condemnation by the world community has made sort of any impact, so to speak, on Hafiz Saeed and his party. Tell us, what more do we know about the candidate that they're backing against Kulsum Nawaz?
Well, the candidate, his name is Sheikh Yaqub, and basically I just spoke to the person who's in charge of the Milli Muslim League's media affairs, and to get a better understanding of this particular candidate and what he's told me. This person, Mr. Yaqub, he has been associated with Jamaat-ud-Dawa in the past, in the sense that he did not hold any positions in Jamaat-ud-Dawa, but he was a coordinator for Jamaat-ud-Dawa. He was part of the Defy Pakistan Council. From what I've been told, he has a degree from Saudi Arabia, so he has links to Saudi Arabia also. And basically, right now, as we speak, they were saying that they are now conducting a campaign door to door. On Sunday, they conducted a big rally in Lahore, and now they are going door to door campaigning in the constituency of NA 120, which is where, as you were mentioning, also Kulsum Nawaz is also contesting from, which is the wife of the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. So it seems as business as usual for them. There is the Election Commission just accepted their nomination papers. On the other hand, the nomination papers of Kulsum Nawaz have not been even accepted as yet. So it seems that there is a lot of support for this Milli Muslim League, this new political party of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, which has come recently.
Right, Taha, it's almost ironic, though, isn't it, that let's say Kulsum Nawaz's papers do get approved. The fact of the matter is that Nawaz Sharif, the PML and other political establishments in Pakistan have maintained repeatedly that there is a fight against terror that's going on within the country, but there is a global terrorist, Hafiz Saeed, and the candidate that he's backing is going to be the one challenging no less than the ex-Prime Minister's wife. So it's sort of come back full circle in many ways to Mr. Sharif and really speaking the whole political establishment in the country.
Well, from the looks of it, basically, from what we understand here is that the PMLN, Nawaz Sharif, he was in the past was establishment's candidate back in the 90s, in the 80s when he came into politics. He stepped into politics with the support of the establishment, the military establishment, and now. As we see, this particular new party, the Milli Muslim League, also has the same sort of end name, which is the Muslim League, which is what the Jinnah's party, the founder of Pakistan, was. So they're using that same name. They have the establishment's backing, and they are very popular in Punjab province. So it's similar, sort of like the way of the establishment, the method of the establishment that we've seen in the past, that they use a party, they use some politicians, they use political personalities, important personalities, and then they discard them. So it's in the same line, in the same way. A lot of analysts believe that as Nawaz Sharif was used, and then Nawaz Sharif went against the establishment or went against the military or his own patrons, and then now he has been sort of sidelined, and the way this whole judicial coup, as they're calling some of them, has happened against him. So now the establishment, which is very strong in Punjab, is coming out with a new candidate, with a new sort of political front in the form of this Milli Muslim League.
Taha, you know, we've spoken about the condemnation from the world community about this fielding of this candidate, the formation of the party by Hafiz Saeed. But what sort of reaction has the story gathered in Pakistan? You spoke of popular sentiment in Punjab, but how realistic are the chances of somebody like Yaqub winning an election and, of course, the pursuance of this political party by Hafiz Saeed? Does that look like a fairly good chance at this point?
Well, you know, the Jamaat-ud-Dawa has been acting as a front for a charity organization, and they have made quite the inroads into the society in Punjab province, especially because of the fact that there is an absence of support and infrastructural development and sort of help to people especially when there are, for example, natural disasters. Jamaat-ud-Dawa is the first one to be there. When there are any man-made disasters, Jamaat-ud-Dawa is the first one to be there. So they've definitely made inroads in the poor segments of the society, and that has a large voter base in that sense. But they've never actually translated that support that they have for voter support. So this time around, they're going in for the elections for the first time. They're going into mainstream politics for the first time.
All right. We seem to have a little bit of trouble hearing you entirely, Taha. Stay with me a second. We're trying to fix that. In the meantime, let me just take our viewers through the different points we've touched upon in this conversation over the last 10 odd minutes, because just days after the Pakistani terrorist Hafiz Saeed launched that political party that Taha was referring to, remember it is a rebranding of the existing outfit Jamaat-ud-Dawa, and the Milli Muslim League has a new candidate, and that very same candidate is going up against the former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's wife, Kulsum Nawaz. Let's go back to my colleague Taha Siddiqui. He's joining us on the broadcast live from Islamabad for more on that story. Taha, if I can draw your attention now to Kulsum Nawaz also. I mean, we must talk a little bit about what exactly is going on in the Nawaz Sharif family. What exactly is holding back the nomination papers of Miss Nawaz, and how exactly do you see her if those papers do get approval? What sort of candidate does she appear to be when faced with somebody with the popularity you've already talked about?
Well, Aisha, one of the things is that from what we understand, the last elections when Nawaz Sharif went into the same constituency where he won from, NA 120, which is in Lahore and in the interior part of Lahore, that constituency Nawaz Sharif won only by 15,000 votes, around about 15,000 votes. Earlier on, before in his previous tenures in the 90s, he used to win here by big margins like 60,000 votes, 70,000 votes. So given that he had a very small margin, it means that, and at that time in 2013 elections when he won from this constituency, it was the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Imran Khan's party, which had a candidate which they are already fielding, again the same candidate against Kulsum Nawaz. So given that there will be a lot of votes that will be divided between the PTI candidate, the PMLN, Kulsum Nawaz candidate, the candidate, and then now the Milli Muslim League also is making inroads. So definitely it is going to be a tough competition between all these three candidates. And the very fact that Kulsum Nawaz's papers are not, the nomination papers are not accepted as yet, reflects that there is still constant pressure from the establishment.
Right.
On election commission, on different institutions, to sort of not give...
Stay with me. Taha, allow me to come in. We're having difficulty hearing you once again. We're going to try and fix that. Kartikeya Sharma, WION's political editor, also on the broadcast with me now. Kartikeya, you know, the irony and the hypocrisy is almost comic at this point in time. You have a US designated global terrorist on the one hand, he's launching a political party, he's supporting a candidate, but I suppose what better time to do all of those things than right now when there is a very clear political void, a leadership void that exists in Pakistan.
Absolutely. See, this is, when when legal institutions collide, this is the result. I will not get into the debate whether judiciary overstepped itself when it came to Nawaz Sharif's verdict, because Pakistani press itself was pretty much divided, and a lot of Pakistani commentators had indeed addressed the issue that somehow, judiciary was also under the pressure of the Pakistani military and was interfering into the electoral and the political processes. And most of the editorials took that line. But saying that, I would say this is like acknowledging, or it is like creating a political space by proxy for a party which is being run by a terrorist. People can say that, well, the party itself is not being recognized, but the candidate it supports, is being, you have created that non-electoral political space for him, something which shouldn't have been available. He's a designated terrorist, so that argument does not hold water. A lot of people would say, well, he's supporting them, but right, he has not been recognized. But then he's politically active. So
allow me to come in a second. Shahzeb Jilani, senior journalist, is also joining us on the conversation on the phone line from Islamabad. Shahzeb, thanks very much for speaking with us here on WION. In the world's mind, in India's mind, of course, Hafiz Saeed is no doubt a global terrorist. He's accused of the multiple atrocities that were carried out in the Mumbai terror attack. But does Pakistan view him as that? Does Pakistan look at Hafiz Saeed as a terrorist? Is the irony as apparent there that it is over here?
No, obviously not. Pakistan does not see him as a terrorist. They believe that he is an activist, a leader, a militant leader who has been basically active in Kashmir. So there is obviously, we know that the Pakistani army has supported him, backed him, protected him, and overall, nationally, I would say, as a country, Pakistan denies or is in denial about his activities. For the last few years, he's been active on behalf of his charity, Jamaat-ud-Dawa and Falah-e-Insaniyat. In the last few years that I have covered disasters, whether they are in remote areas along the Iranian border or floods and earthquakes, right, their organization is often the first one to get there. So their reputation of late is of a charity, but we all know that that is probably a front for all their other activities.
Shahzeb, I want to probe you further on that point about how exactly he's viewed. You said Pakistan doesn't look at him as a terrorist, but what about political parties like the PMLN, like the PTI, the PPP? What do they have to say about Hafiz Saeed, especially given now that he might just be competition?
Our mainstream political parties are, for the most part, silent on Hafiz Saeed and other such figures in Pakistan who are known for carrying out attacks in Kashmir and other parts of India. And that's mainly because our mainstream political parties do not want to be on the wrong side of the army, because the army believes this is part of its national security policy to have some of these people who are committed to the Kashmir cause and who will go to any extent because they see it as their jihad, as a just cause. Now, bear in mind, this whole business about terrorists going mainstream, this is exactly what the US has been trying to achieve in Afghanistan, asking the Taliban to lay down arms, accept the constitution, and become part of the political process. So this is not unheard of. You look at Britain and how IRA, they committed lots of militant attacks inside Britain, and once they laid down their arms, there were negotiations, the Good Friday Agreement is there. So it's not unheard of for yesterday's terrorists to then become part of the mainstream political process. The only problem is no one really believes that if these guys go mainstream, they will stop all their previous activities or they will actually want to be involved in politics in Pakistan rather than be focused on militant activities in India.
Fair enough. Stay with me, Shahzeb. Kartikeya, if I can come to you, it seems like from what we're gathering from Shahzeb's comments also that it's like Pakistan mainstream politics and parties are sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. The silence at this point seems to be coming back to bite them with Hafiz Saeed launching his own political party. But then what else do parties do? How else do they put their agenda across without seeming anti-Kashmir or anti the so-called fight for freedom in Kashmir?
See, I think, every state, every nation has its own destiny, and destiny is forced by the intellectuals and people. The intellectual community of the Pakistan has to decide which way they need to take Pakistan to. They want to take Pakistan to a position from a departure point which Ziaul Haq started in 1980s, where Islamification of the Pakistani army, civilian life and military life has taken place. They want to take Pakistan to a point where military in itself becomes full of suspicion of its own men, thinking that, they have been inspired and motivated by the Taliban ideology, or they want to take it to Pakistan what Muhammad, what Jinnah thought. The worst of Shia Sunni sectarian strife is taking place in Pakistan. You don't have Shia Sunni riots here. India has a huge Muslim population, but you don't have those riots here. But every third day you will have Afghanistan and Pakistan. You'll have one mosque or other being blown apart because it belongs to the minority community within the Islam. So this is a basic question they have to ponder, that if you justify a terrorist like Hafiz Saeed as a militant or as an activist doing some work in Kashmir, then how can you have a free and fair and frank debate? It's like Donald Trump saying all sides in Charlottesville. No, it was about white supremacists beating, injuring people who were protesting.
Right.
That's the simple thing. You can't equalize violence, all sides. You have to take the side because truth has a side.
Okay, Ramesh Ramachandran also joining us on the broadcast from the international desk. Ramesh, it's a foregone conclusion on where exactly India stands on Hafiz Saeed's foray into politics. But what sort of commentary have we seen from the international community? Has it been on point, or has it seemed wanting at this point in time?
Well, Aisha, this is the politics of the bizarre, to say the least. It's getting bizarre by the hour. I mean, here we have a terrorist, a global designated terrorist, Hafiz Saeed, launching a political outfit. These are banned outfits, Jamaat-ul-Dawa, formerly LET, and now taking the shape of a political party. And just by way of aside, Aisha, here is or was a former Prime Minister who was disqualified because he was, as per the Constitution of Pakistan, not Sadiq and Amin, honest and righteous. Now, are we to believe that here is one person who is wanted for terrorist attacks? Is he Sadiq and Amin by Pakistan political standards? I mean, that's ridiculous to say the least. Now, the point to be asked is, there are three candidates as of now contesting from the NA 120 seat. That is the PTI party, the Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. We have the Milli Council of Hafiz Saeed, and then we have Kulsum Nawaz of the PMLN. Now, to my mind, the question that is agitating my mind, for instance, Aisha, is who would have the backing or the blessings, as it were, of the Pakistani deep state, the military establishment? Would it be Imran Khan's PTI, or would it be Hafiz Saeed's party? We don't know yet. But the fact remains that this is all, being choreographed to put up a stiff resistance to the re-election, or the election, as it were, of Kulsum Nawaz from the same seat held by Nawaz Sharif.
Absolutely. Taha, if I can come to you now, we keep talking about how India and the international community is reacting to news from Pakistan. But do you think perhaps the paradigm is all wrong? It is internal politics, it is internal decisions that really will determine the path that Pakistan takes forward. And I have to ask you about that deep state, that invisible hand of the military at this point in time. I'm sure the military is also conscious of the fact that Hafiz Saeed is a very popular man. His role in Pakistani society being dubbed as charitable. Could this then become, a giant in proportions that the military hasn't really understood the consequences of it at later stages?
Well, from what it seems, Aisha, this is not the first time that they are using such militants as proxies for their political reasons or for their political agenda. We've seen that happening in the past. Just today, some analysts that were discussing about this Milli Muslim League, they were talking about some parties in Balochistan, for example, in the sense that there used to be political alliances with the military. There used to be groups which were politically allied with the Pakistan army back in Musharraf's time, and then later on they were considered as militant groups. So it is very if we look at the past and from the experience that we've had with the Pakistani establishment here, this is a constant feature that they continue to apply, and this sort of policy that they keep on using people for their political reasons and then discarding them.
Karthikeyan, in that case, if this has been the plan for the past God knows how many years in Pakistan. There's a little or slim hope that there's going to be any sort of alteration of that. We've even seen Qamar Javed Bajwa, the new Pakistani chief. He had a very different point of view in the run-up to his taking over the post of the COAS. But since then, it's really been back to the same old tired commentary on Kashmir, just as it's been in the past.
Oh, absolutely, it's going to be a long winter. Leave alone the imagination for a thaw. You know, if you can have terrorists supporting proxy candidates, and that too in a high-profile election like this, and you can't get more high-profile politically than this election, and then it sort of receives support cutting across political constituents, then what do? Which means that somehow the opinion has hardened, and there is no sense of engagement. And secondly, most of them are treated like strategic assets or deep assets for the Pakistani army. Then where will you see that the negotiation will go? You know, whether it's the Jadhav case, Hafiz Saeed case, or any other case. I think it just goes on to show that there is no breakthrough in near future, and what it does is it adds baggage to the relationship. So whoever tends, or whoever in future from India or in Pakistan would like to distangle itself from the baggage and go ahead with talks or some sort of a conversation, it'll be a Herculean task for him.
Okay, Ramesh, would it be fair to say in that case that this is a repetition of the old formula, so to speak, in Pakistan, or are the stakes entirely different this time around, keeping in mind Mr. Sharif's disqualification from the post of Prime Minister?
Well, Aisha, as the American saying goes, we've seen this movie before. One should not be too surprised or perturbed what is happening in Pakistan today, especially within Pakistan polity. We had the army and the military play a big role in Pakistan politics. But now what we are seeing is the mainstreaming, or the so-called mainstreaming, or the metamorphosis of some a terrorist or a terrorist outfit into a mainstream political party. And that, to my mind, is a challenge with countries around the world, democratic societies, including India, will have to face going forward. And I don't know how much of traction this party and this candidate may have in Lahore in the NA 120 seat. But if the procession, the rally is any indicator, that one can expect it to put up a resistance, if not fully win the seat, as it were. But they can get enough traction between now and the next parliamentary election, whenever it's held. And to my mind, the big question is, who will the Pakistani deep state support? Will it be the PTI of Imran Khan, or will it be the Milli party of Hafiz Saeed? We don't know yet, and that's one thing which one needs to wait and watch. Okay,
I have time for one last question. Ramesh, I'll take that to you again. Where exactly, we spoke of the military, but where exactly does the Pakistani ally in the form of the United States stand in this? Let's not forget that Hafiz Saeed has been designated as a global terrorist by the US. By allowing him to pursue his political ambition, in many ways isn't Pakistan also snubbing the US?
Well, clearly, Aisha, if the past is any indicator, Pakistan has made it abundantly clear that not only will it continue to use terrorism as an instrument of state policy, but it is good at running with a hare and hunting with the hounds. We've seen that happen with Americans and the former Soviet Union. We saw that happen with now with the US and China. He's diversifying its relations and pitting one against the other. And even as we speak, the Americans are reviewing the AFPAK policy, the Afghanistan-Pakistan policy, and they've been holding talks with Indian leaders as well. And none other than Defense Minister James Mattis has gone on record as saying that Pakistan poses the biggest problem for America in Afghanistan, and that, to my mind, speaks volumes about Pakistan's doublespeak on terrorism, and especially on its attitude and behavior to combating terrorism in the region and beyond.
Okay, we leave it at that, gentlemen. As far as our AFPAK policy goes, though, I think everyone's waiting with bated breath to see what exactly the US administration comes out with, especially all players here in South Asia. But Taha Siddiqui, Ramesh Ramachandran and Kartikeya Sharma, all of you, thanks very much, as well as Shahzad Jilani, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on that developing story. With that, I'm wrapping up. Thanks for joining us here on WION.